Well, Andy Hoare, I'm getting hot just looking at that seat. Woo! Welcome, everyone, to Master B2B Mythbusters, where we take a commonly held belief in B2B e-commerce, and we find out if it's a truth or if it's a myth. And we're putting someone special on the hot seat today. I'm excited for this one. We're going to be talking about marketplaces, one of my favorite topics. My name is Brian Beck. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Andy Hoare. Andy is a longtime veteran of B2B e-commerce, veteran of Silicon Valley. He's the CEO of Paradigm B2B. He ran B2B e-commerce for Forrester Research. Andy, great to be here today on another hot seat session with you.
I'm just worried about using the word veteran too much because veteran sounds like I'm old, but I'll go with it for now.
I didn't want to say anything. But...
Well, for those of you who don't know Brian, also a veteran, 20-year industry veteran. I'll just keep repeating it as veteran.
Fine. Yes, go ahead.
So Brian's been a practitioner. He was B2B with Harbor Freight Tools. You're in e-commerce there. PacSun on the B2C side. Yep. He was also worked for a consultancy systems integrator. So he's been on that side of the fence. And he wrote a book called $1 Billion B2B E-commerce, which I somehow seem to have lost. I can't find it anywhere. It might be in the door. I don't know, but I'll find it next time and bring it. But anyway, Brian, great to be here, and I can't wait to talk about this one too. We got a great guest as well.
We do. So yeah, look on your nightstand, Andy. My book makes a good sleep aid. Maybe you forgot. So guys, today we're talking about marketplaces, and the question today is: are native marketplaces only for the largest and most mature e-commerce companies? And we've got, Andy, I'm looking at the list of folks joining. I mean, again, a great audience. We have some people who have deployed marketplaces. I see Toyota Material Handling is here. Kendall Group is here, Mars, Gordon Food Service, Valen, Ansel is here, Schneider Electric. Hey, guys, know you well. Grasshopper, Trent, good to see you. Ergodyne is here, Sager Electronics. Dave, hey, how are you? So it's a great group, Andy. This is a topic that continues to be of interest to our industry and whether or not companies can actually, deploy it. And I think you have some data to share to kind of frame up our conversation. Why don't we go into that data now? And by the way, folks who are listening, before we do that, we want to hear from you throughout this, and we're going to have a poll at the end. So we're going to find out if our mystery guest here has actually busted the myth or not. So stick around and make your votes at the end, and we'll reveal that. But Andy, why don't you go ahead and share some data around this?
Yeah, so I think it's always helpful to remind people why marketplaces matter, especially in B2B. You can see the numbers here. I mean, 79% of suppliers have built or are planning to build or are considering building a marketplace, according to McKinsey. It's going to be a $3 trillion market by 2024, and we're looking at pretty dramatic growth numbers. And we've had actually conversations about this in the past. Right. The reason why is because it's finding an inefficiency, whether it's nurses who are trying to book time, or it's an obscure kind of product, or the long tail, or just stuff that people, have overlooked. And there's a lot of inefficiency out there. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. And every company now is figuring out that they really need to play in this marketplace space, either as a market maker or a market taker or both, which is the next slide. So conventionally, this is how people have looked at, I've been talking about this for many years now. This is how people have talked about marketplaces, that you get manufacturers and distributors, and you got small companies, you got large companies. And typically, small manufacturers and small distributors have been market takers, meaning they sell in other people's marketplaces because they're not big enough or have enough, center of gravity to make it work. And in contrast, the large manufacturers in particular, and to some extent the large distributors, can also be marketplaces, meaning third-party sellers, usually those small guys, are selling in their marketplaces. The challenge now is these things are starting to fuse because some small manufacturers and distributors are actually finding some success with marketplaces, and some of the larger guys are finding that it's more difficult than they thought, which leads to our next and last slide. And this is all as a setup for our guest here. Yep. Forrester published some research a couple of months ago. It's pretty spot on this. And if you look at the top graph, it says more than half of respondents in the survey, pretty large scale survey, spent $3 million or more to launch a marketplace. $3 million. And that nearly 2/3 of the respondents took 6 months or more to launch that marketplace.
Wow.
So according to their research, it's expensive and time consuming. And that's the question we're going to put to our guest.
Yeah.
Is that a fact? Is that a myth or not?
Well, I think it's important too, Andy, to clarify for our audience what we're talking about here in terms of a marketplace, because there's a lot of also misconception around what exactly is the market. And what we're talking about here, folks, is a first-party marketplace. It's a company-owned marketplace where buyers can buy through your marketplace. We're not talking about necessarily third-party, like an Amazon, for example, would be considered a third-party marketplace. When Andy's talking about $3 million to build a marketplace, it's companies putting up their own, right? If that makes sense. So just want to make sure that's clear for everyone here today, that that's what we're talking about. Good. So we have an awesome guest joining us today. This is an expert in e-commerce and digital commerce. So Robert, why don't we roll in here and let's see who we have in the hot seat today. Man, that looks painful. All right. So in our hot seat today, we have a very experienced person. Come on the stage here, Ms. Karie Daudt. I hope you brought your neoprene suit, because that's a hot fire. So Karie Daudt is the Director of Product Management for Global E-commerce for HCL. She has a long history in this industry. I've known Karie for years. She's formerly with Proficient. Earlier, she was with Insight as the head of marketing. She was at Turk. Did I say that right, Karie? Did I say it right? Yep. Turk on the practitioner side, 6 years leading marketing, digital, and other efforts for them. So, Karie, you said you wanted to be on the hot seat. Here we are. Tell the audience a little bit about who you are.
Hi, it's great to be here. I'm ready. I've got my neoprene suit on.
Okay.
My name is Karie Daudt. I've spent a lot of time in the industry in manufacturing and distribution in a lot of different roles. So I've kind of done it all. I don't want to use the word veteran because that just really scares me, but I'm ready. I have lots of opinions about marketplaces, so let's roll. Well,
I think you're going to argue that these can be deployed by anybody. I don't think we believe you. Andy and I don't believe any of this hype, do we, Andy? What do you got? What's your first question there, Mr. Horf? Why don't you start our salvos?
Very simple. You saw the research. Tell us why they're wrong. I mean, the conventional thinking is that this takes a long time and costs a lot of money. I think you're going to tell us that's not necessarily true, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you tell me.
Yeah, Robert, do you want to bring up the second slide first, the taker and maker?
Oh, oops. She's going back and she's gonna
use your research against you, Mr.
Gonna analyze our
research. I'm completely just going to hit on this quick, right?
Awesome.
This is old, right? I don't believe I have seen some very small organizations that are more makers than some of the large organizations. So I don't believe this slide at all, right? I think taker and maker is about maturity and it's about investment and commitment. So I don't think the size of the organization means squat.
Wow. Andy, she just called your research irrelevant and outdated. Thank you, Karie. I love that.
Usually you're the person who does that. So this is new. Now I'm fighting two angles. I have a two-front war here.
Karie's on my side. You can join my team anytime, Karie. Excellent. Excellent. So what are some examples? Do you have some examples? You said that, you don't have to be a monster to do this, right? So put your money where your mouth is, Karie.
Well, there's lots of examples, right? I can think about a million places I can start. But I'm going to start with a very immature distributor, very tiny distributor, right? And they digitally, I would say they're probably one of the more immature organizations I've worked with, right? But they recognize they have a problem. And they recognize that there are ways to solve that problem, and marketplace is one of them, right? Worked with them very closely to work through this. And so they had a unique situation where they were part of a large organization, and the companies could buy from anybody they wanted, right? They didn't have to buy from them as their distributor, even though they were part of their ecosystem, because they were owned by an investment company. And they used the marketplace to start with procurement, right? So just getting their own businesses to buy from them to leverage that consolidated buying into their own organization. So they were making money off of purchases their partners their sister companies were making anyway. And then on top of that, then take that and expand that into now let's also be a public B2B marketplace. So now we're not only just selling to procurement, but we're also selling products and extended aisle products to the market. It makes them more competitive. It makes them more of a one-stop shop, and it gives them the opportunity to drive share, right? Where that they would not have an opportunity to do any other way.
But Karie Daudt, how does it give them opportunities to buy? Can't they do that with their conventional e-commerce? Why do they need a marketplace to do that?
Nope, because they need the ability to bring in those third-party products. They need the ability to build those partnerships with other vendors to be able to get the pricing negotiated. And e-commerce does not support the ability for those sellers to come in and manage their products, manage their pricing. And e-commerce and marketplace solves for that, right? It really gives them that buyer-seller relationship. E-commerce solves for you're selling your own products. It is not intended to bring other third parties in to extend your aisle or to sell more products.
And they spend $3 million? How much money?
No, not even close. Let's bring that slide up, Robert.
Yeah,
I need Andy, I'm coming after you today, Andy.
This is Forrester's
I love
research.
it.
But you brought the slide up. So the reality is, I don't know where people are getting these numbers, right? I have not seen it. My experience is 100%. You're working with the wrong companies if you're spending this kind of money, right? I don't know where it's happening. So I'm going to say number one, there's no way people are spending time. I've seen marketplaces be up in as short as 3 to 6 months. It really depends on, are you trying to build a rocket ship? Or are you trying to get off the ground and then iterate over time to grow and expand? So you can spend any amount of money you want to. My response is you don't have to spend that kind of money, right? You can get started with a marketplace in a much more conservative way.
Okay, so is this a reflection of where the technology has been and has it matured? I mean, tell us more about that. So obviously, I mean, Forrester doesn't make numbers up. They survey 120 people who've done this, or companies or whatever, right, Andy? So 3 million or more. I mean, obviously some spent less, right? 32% spent less, fine. But the majority are spending more. So what do you think that's due to? I mean, okay, wrong tech. Has tech evolved? And what's going on?
I'm going to say they're picking the wrong tech.
Okay.
And they're, I hate to say this, maybe picking the wrong partners to work with for implementation as well, right? So it's a combination of those things. So it's really important that you pick the tech that's going to support what you're trying to do. Don't overbuy. It's no different than e-commerce, right? You don't have to overbuy. Buy what makes sense for your business, grow and iterate over time. And then the other thing is, pick your partners, pick partners who know what they're doing, who are experienced, who have the knowledge, and are going to be there to partner and support you.
So how much should I spend? I'm a $30 million distributor. How much should I spend? Give me a number.
That's hard.
I know. That's why I'm asking.
I'm saying, you could get started for $600,000, $700,000, $100,000, not $600.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Good. Thank you for the specificity. Now, what about the, the complex? So marketplace, as we all know, is so complex, right? And Andy, I'm going to take this because you're losing the battle here with all your research. I
got a great question here in a second. So
all right, hold on, wait a second. Okay, so Karie, this is not easy. Amazon took 30 years to get scale on and they didn't even introduce a marketplace until they were 10 years into their existence. They were a retailer essentially. So this is hard, right? It's not just the tech, it's also the fulfillment. You got to manage sellers, you got to recruit big buyers, you have to manage the customer experience on the other side when you're not even shipping the product. I mean, a marketplace, think about Amazon, what Amazon is as a penultimate example of an open marketplace. You really think a small company can take on everything else, like all the seller management, seller recruitment? This is a big effort, right?
There's a lot of different ways to look at that, right? There's multiple ways to skin any cat. Sorry, I used that analogy.
It's okay.
I really think about it as, there are companies that will operate for you, right? And I've seen a lot of these smaller marketplace operators start with, hey, let's work with a partner or somebody who's going to help run the operations, right? They're set up to do that. They know how to attract vendors. They know how to manage sellers. That's one way. The other way is, you invest in the people that you need, but a lot of these organizations have finance in their organization. They have operations in their organization. So maybe rather than thinking about it as you have to have everybody in that single ecosystem, you can leverage other or parts of your organization to support this as well. And then again, you grow and iterate over time. So I think that, you can take the path of, I'm going to start with somebody helping me operate. I'm going to help and I'm going to learn from them, right? I've seen them marketplace companies hire one person to run it. They work with that partner and then they learn and they grow their team. And over time, they take that over, right? Because nobody wants to necessarily pay somebody to operate forever. But it's a really great way to get started and to get your business growing and learn while you're working with somebody who's experienced, and then take it over as you can.
Yeah.
So let's bring in a data point here, because Samir Shahadi actually just commented. Samir was at 3M. He's been at some pretty large organizations in the past. He said, in previous roles, I've spent 1/3 of the $3 million, so $1 million for 2 countries, and each took around 6 months. And he said roughly $500 for tech launch, put aside 20% for marketing commercial activities. So we can take them separately here. There's the cost and there's the time frame. Let's take them separately. What do you say to what Samir just said there about the cost? He said that's a better number than 3 million, but that was to launch in just 2 countries. So when you say it's not going to cost $3 million, I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say, for what?
Well, I look at launch in countries, right? Number one, when I think about launching in another country, it's like launching again, even if you're extending what you have, because you have to deal with language, you have to deal with currency, you have to deal with a lot of other things. So in my mind, that's $500,000 for each site to implement, right? That's not out of line. So I don't think that that's a bad number at all. And it really proves what I said, $600,000, right? $500,000. And he did it in 6 months, right? So again, completely goes against the data we saw from Forrester on the other slide.
So let's start time frame then. Well, go ahead, Brian.
No, I was just going to say, don't worry about the Forrester stuff. That's where Andy came from. So go ahead, ask your
time frame too, right? Like it really depends on if you do the work ahead of time, if you've already built partnerships, if you've got a solid plan, you've got a reason, right? You know what you're doing. The implementation, there's a lot of work you can do about the business and the operations while you're doing the implementation, right? So you can shorten that time. So I've seen marketplaces go up in as fast as 3 months and then 6 months. Again, if you're trying to build the Taj Mahal, it's going to take you longer and you're going to spend more, right? And we saw that in e-commerce when it started, right? It was multiple $1 million and it took 2 years. None of us have time. If we think about time to market and time to value and return, nobody can invest that much time and that much money with no return and get leadership to continue to invest. So, it just doesn't work that way.
So, Karie, what's happened with the price of marketplace licenses? And I'm asking this question because it seems eerily familiar to what you just said around e-commerce platforms. Yeah. Remember, they were on-prem and they were millions of dollars and took a long time, 10x that time to implement it. $3 million for the license, $30 million to implement it for an enterprise-like system. Maybe we started out with that with enterprise marketplace capability, putting aside the seller management part that Brian just talked about. But on the license side, yes, the cloud came and people were able to use compute power to drive the price down. But what has changed with marketplace licenses? Why are those not as expensive as they used to be?
I think competition, right? We're seeing more and more companies come out with marketplace technology, part of really thinking about it as part of a platform. Like if you think about how much marketplace has dependencies on that front end and the storefront and the functionality that exists with commerce. If you want to buy a separate engine and then have to leverage your front end, you're going to spend more. That's the reality, right? But there's a lot of e-commerce platforms. Like we have marketplace. We're actually putting it into an integrated composable capability, right? So it's going to be a standalone. It can be sold independently with our platform. It can be sold with our platform. It's something that you can leverage or not leverage, but you're not spending extra for it in that situation. If you're buying it to work with a different platform, then you are going to pay for that component, but those capabilities. But there are so many options, right? You don't have to buy one ginormous piece just to run a marketplace and then another piece for your commerce. You can bring them together and you can actually buy them as capabilities and plug them in. If you think about how much overlap marketplace has with commerce, so then why don't you just leverage what you need to extend what you have into support marketplace, as opposed to buying two completely separate solutions and bringing them together, which is going to drive cost and replication of data and effort and all of those things as well.
So Karie Daudt, you obviously don't doubt this model, haha. So
no, there's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Yes,
that's okay. Brian's favorite band, by the way.
No. How much more are we going to play with this? All right, Andy Hoare. So Karie, so I'm curious your opinion. Andy and I disagree on this. Where is the use case stronger, a manufacturer or a distributor for a marketplace as a part of their e-commerce strategy, or even independent from an e-commerce strategy? Which type of business has a better use case for marketplace?
Well, in a lot of ways, I think of distributors, they're already running marketplaces, right? Like, now, if they want to extend their offering, but not have to sign more vendors and sign up for those sales and those goals, and every vendor has like targets of numbers you have to reach in order to sell their products, right? So for a distributor, I think the opportunities are definitely there. If you don't want to sign additional vendors and you don't want to manage those vendors, but you want to extend your product, because think about it, that one-stop shop, right? If you can keep your customers on your site, they're going to buy more, they're going to spend more with you, and everybody's looking for vendor consolidation because of cost. But I really think that manufacturers have the biggest opportunity for marketplace. And the reason I think that is because they're Brian, go sit down. Let me finish. Before you start shaking your head, no, man, let me go. Thanks, Andy. So I think about, like, I have seen so many manufacturers who are digitally mature, but yet don't know how to run a marketplace, right? Let me give you an example, right? I have a large automotive manufacturer, and they're digitally mature in some ways, but not when it comes to really like e-commerce. That's not the way they've sold historically. It's a big shift for them, but they can't sell direct, right? Like they have contractual obligations with all of their dealers that started from when they began. They don't have a way to really extend that aisle without supporting their distributors. So they're using a marketplace to extend their product offerings, bring in wireless, bring in Navstar and other tools, right? But then they're letting their distribution, their dealers, be the fulfillment arm. Yeah. So they're able to extend, they're able to sell more, and they're letting their dealers be the distribution model. And so it's a win-win for them, right? And it's going to enable them to continue to grow. Just wait a minute, Brian. It's going to enable them to continue to grow and expand their business and support their dealers, which they're obligated to do by contracts.
Brian, I think, in light of what we just heard, I think Karie may have earned her spot as a permanent panelist.
She may have, actually.
I mean, in the Mythbuster series.
I will say, okay, so that's exactly where we disagree, by the way. Well, what you just said, because the argument you just made leaves out the customer. Why is the customer going to the manufacturer? I don't care about the distributor right now.
Trust. It's trust, man.
Okay. Is there? Okay, fine. Maybe. All right. So I'll give you that. All right. So, okay. So I know we have a couple minutes left, guys. So I want to ask one more, and then Andy, you get one more. So my question is really about, so you were talking, okay, let's talk about a smaller distributor, for example, for a moment. My $30 million distributor example. You said, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 to whatever it is to launch in a marketplace. Okay. In the realm of possibility and budgeting, yes. Right. But it's a big investment for a company that size. Where is the return, Karie Daudt? What's driving benefit? If I'm going to invest that much, I got other things I can invest in. That's a new, that's an entirely new website. It's new channels. It's other things I can invest in. Why do this? Why do a marketplace?
Well, I think the return is, again, if you're a small distributor and you're selling your limited products, you're competing with all of these companies who can sell more, right? And so for a marketplace, as a small operator, not having to manage more vendors, not have to sign more vendors, but be able to extend your product offering to meet the needs of your customer solves that problem, right? There's where your return is. You're keeping them on your site longer. You're able to, cross-sell, upsell. You're able to use AI, right, to make recommendations based off of the data that you're getting from B2B. You're able to even make recommendations to your business on the things that they can do that drive efficiencies, which save money, which means you have more investment into your organization and to selling more. You can continue if people are looking for things, you don't have them. It gives you the opportunity to say, I can bring those products in and I can keep these customers with me and not going to my competition because I'm solving their needs. I have a distributor who literally, to satisfy their customers, would stock koi food to feed their koi at these different accounts. Like,
interesting.
That's something you can do. I keep losing volume. I don't know. I apologize. That's a service, right? Now, and where do distributors differentiate? With services, with those type of things. So a marketplace serves the needs of services as well as products, right? So you could extend, like maybe you sell products, but you don't install them. What if you offer installation services through a partner, right? Like through a new vendor. There's so many opportunities here to drive your business and grow your investment.
Well, so Brian, I think one of the issues around this is if you look at it in a static sense, it maybe the ROI argument isn't as strong. But if you think about it as a distributor expanding the market, adding additional lines, and I call it the puffer fish approach, becoming a puffer fish, getting bigger faster without having to take the burden of the inventory, for example, then I think it can make sense. But I have to go back to this manufacturer thing versus distributor thing. The reason Karie is so right and Brian, you're so wrong, is because this is the classic way to thread the needle on channel conflict. And it's
it's an excuse, Andy Hoare.
It's not an exclusively good argument for them, but it's a pretty powerful argument for any manufacturer. I think it's less about why are distributors doing it, but why aren't manufacturers doing it?
Oh, come on, man.
This is something that allows them to sell everywhere. Yes, we can have a separate discussion about distributors, but I think this is a good argument for the vast majority of manufacturers to sell online, maybe even to the exclusion of selling direct.
Well, look, I think, and we're getting some good comments here on the Julian. Thank you for contributing here. So are you advocating to eliminate resellers where you can? Only contractual obligations keep manufacturers from doing this. Interesting. Thank you for that comment. Look, Andy, I think this is a path to manufacturers selling direct. The marketplace model for them is an interim step. They're going to realize that I'm holding the inventory, and it's something that, all I'm doing here is avoiding channel conflict, which is inevitably the buyer wanting to buy from them directly. Karie, to your point about trust, I agree with you there. To me, the marketplace model is much stronger with distributors. But anyway, our point here today is it right for a smaller company? Karie's saying no. Is it right for a smaller company to integrate this? You talked about, the return on investment. I do think there, if we look at Grainger, for example, and it's a big company, but when they talk about where their growth is coming from, a lot of it is from the extended assortment, right? Mm-hmm. So that extended assortment is meaningful. And I think the business case is really powerful for a distributor to do this. And look at Partstown, Andy, right? And Karie,
we're not saying it's not important. We're just saying it's more important and more powerful.
You're totally wrong.
But Brian, we have to go to the poll question here because
I know we have to go to the fire. Let's go to the.
So we have to see if Karie broke the.
Yeah, we need to see if she broke. Let's go. There it is, folks. So chime in here. Are native marketplaces only for the largest and most mature e-commerce companies? Remember, folks, native marketplaces are first party. They're you deploying a marketplace for your company, manufacturer, distributor. Place your votes. We'll review the answers in just a second. Any final comments, Karie, from you, Ms. Daudt, who does not doubt that it's good for small companies? Any final words of wisdom for our audience?
I think it's for everybody, right? I honestly think marketplace is an opportunity for everybody.
Okay, excellent. Okay. And Andy, you think, well, I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I think it depends. I think conventionally it's been for the largest and most mature, but I think we live in a world that's a lot more dynamic now, and it can make a lot of sense for a company that wants to get bigger sort of quickly. And it's not an automatic for really large companies that just do marketplaces because it's a Thursday. right?
Yep.
We see a lot of that where these larger companies come to this conclusion that, ooh, somebody else is doing a marketplace, therefore we should. It is not an easy thing. It's like having a puppy or a child. You've got to care and feed the thing, and you can't just buy it and say, here, I'm done.
Yep.
So some of these numbers maybe we can dispute about time and cost, but it's not a no-brainer. It is, however, I think personally, now that the votes are in, the costs have come down pretty dramatically. Karie made the point that it's a module as a part of an existing solution. It's an extension of an all-in-one. That was different from before when it had to be a best-of-breed third-party solution, which made them a lot more expensive.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, we got a comment in here as we're compiling those poll results, folks. Stay tuned for that in just a moment. But I got a comment from an anonymous attendee here. Marketplace allows for one-stop shop across many sellers from a product perspective. So to our point about extended assortment. But in B2B, there are many unique procurement finance requirements to complete the buying process, including things like, not just launching with credit cards, but buying on terms, other aspects, and then reconciling payments. And as you think about, reconciling even back to the seller, right? So a seller puts a product on your marketplace, you need to pay them as the marketplace operator for that product that was sold. There's all kinds of operational considerations here too. To go beyond just the technology, right? And so I think our listeners need to wait. And any final words on that, Karie, before we go to our poll results?
It's true. I mentioned that, right? You already have a lot of these skills within your organization. B2B, you have contracts, you have obligations, you have GOs. There are so many conditions, right? And so the putting those into the marketplace do take time and effort and thought, right? Like, how are we going to manage that? Are we going to handle the payments and then reconcile? So there's a lot of things you have to take into account, but you're already doing that for your customers today. So it's just really, how do we extend that, or how do we make that work for a broader audience?
Yep. And then we've got other comments coming in here too. We don't have time to cover all of them, Sammer. Thanks for that last one. We'll take that one offline. Let's go ahead and go and cover off on our wrap up on our poll results. Robert, if we're ready, go ahead and pop that. All right. Oh, you didn't bust the myth, Karie. Whoa. Myth was
pretty overwhelmingly. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So people still feel, at least the people on this call, that it takes a bigger company and more mature company to do this. Interesting. Okay.
No. It's backwards. Are native marketplaces only for them? And the answer is no.
Oh, you did bust the myth. I'm sorry. I got it wrong.
Yeah. So that's why it says myth busted, Brian. That's
all right. I can't read, man. I can't read. Karie, congratulations. I thought that you would be our first one who didn't bust the myth, but I'm wrong. You did a good job.
No, she busted it pretty overwhelmingly, I think.
Like she killed the busting. Wow, you actually probably this is the most busted any myth has ever been.
So Brian, are you gonna sit in the hot seat now?
I probably deserve it, Karie. I probably deserve it. So that I doubted you was not a good
one last time.
That's right. We want to say thank you to Ms. Karie Daudt, who did a great job busting the myth today. Thank you, Karie. And we will see you next time on our next Mythbuster session. Andy, it was a great one. Thanks for being here.
See everybody soon.